communicating climate contract in post-truth world. That we all know that it is a serious topic and needs a serious attention throughout the world, that where we are now, whether what will be the future of this planet if we do not think seriously what we are doing today. Because though one of the renowned thinker, Professor Dipesh Chakrabarty, has said that history of today is studying the future of the human being. We can say the future of the all living beings and non-human beings. Then I will just begin with some issues, pertinent issues about the climate, why climate matter to us. All of you know that we are in a state of global warming. All of you know that what global warming is. We know the earth is like a greenhouse. When the sun rays comes from the sun and it falls on the earth, and then it gets reflected. But what happened and what human has done, that our habits, our behavior has impacted the climate, and the emission of the greenhouse gases to fulfill the desire of development, to fulfill our greed, that we have destroyed our environment in a more devastating way in the human history. So as a result, the greenhouse gases, you may see the chlorofluorocarbon, the methane, the carbon dioxide gas, that has created a thick layer in the atmosphere, so that when the sun rays comes to Earth, it is not fully reflected. As a result, the Earth temperature increases, and we will discuss in the subsequent slides how the global warming created a chaotic situation in the Earth. Then the next important problem is shortage of water, especially the shortage of fresh groundwater that we have witnessing to today. We are now prone to natural disaster due to the effect of climate change, and we cannot ignore that the current pandemic also is an outcome of what human has done to the environment, how human activities impacted the environment, which is a biological disaster, of course. And another pertinent issue is deforestation. That all of you know, the mega dam projects, the expansion of the roads, expansion of the highways, and the mega mining based industries forced us to cut down the trees, which has subsequently affected our environment, because we are now living in a rainy season in India, but it is more likely than hot summer. That we have already started experiencing what climate is, in what climatic condition we are living in. Another problem is deficit of our rainfall. Now, what rainfall we are witnessing today is the reflection of low pressure and other like natural disaster, but not the natural rainfall that we are experiencing today. And rapid industrialization, mass plastic consumption, the way we are using plastics, which also created a serious consequence to our environment. And we now, if we see the increase of fossil fuel have increased today, and we are importing most foreign industries to extract the fossil fuels to fulfill our energy needs. And finally, there is weapons of mass destruction. We can say nuclear bombs, hydrogen bombs, biological bomb. And the nuclear escalation is also a serious consequence on the environment. If we see what the world has witnessed in 1945, the nuclear bombardment at Hiroshima and Nagasaki city of Japan, we know that what climate catastrophe resulted this. Next, we will begin with some questions of Anthropocene to have a better grasp on the concept. Some pertinent questions, I will begin my discussion. So, who entitled human being to destroy the nature? The human being is now experiencing or is now proclaiming self that he is the most intelligent being of the world. I do not know whether he is the most intelligent, he or she is the most intelligent being, or it is the foolishness of our that we have what we have doing with our nature, what we are doing with our environment. And the way we have destroying the nature, the history will also never forgive us. Does the earth system belongs to the human being only? What price the human is going to pay the earth for their devastating actions that caused global warming? Of course, we would have no answer to this. Why other planetary living beings will pay the price of extinction, the most serious issue. I'm quoting here the extinction for such human deeds. Does the earth really need Homo sapiens, who is continuously destroying the nature to satisfy his selfish need, or we can say greed? Whether the planet or its history will forgive the human being if their present action and nature leads to the destruction of the human earth, the earth. Next, actually my presentation is divided into 3 parts. One is understanding about the human nature, understanding about the state of nature that we are living in, and finally I will give some suggestions in terms of climate contract. We will come to that later. Then I will first begin with human nature. So from the beginning of the civilization, that humans started colonizing the nature for farming and animal husbandry. We know that to live on the earth, that a human being started farming, which is very essential to live. And at the same time, we cannot ignore the history that helped the rise and fall of the great civilization has often closely associated with the changing climatic condition. If you see some of the ancient civilization, like the rise of Harappan civilization, most advanced ancient civilization that flourished in the Indus River basin on the Indian subcontinent. Around the same time, if you see, the Egyptians were building the pyramids along the Nile River, and the Mesopotamians were digging irrigation channels fed by the Tigris and Euphrates River. That what I'm trying to say here is that it is about the better climatic condition that help the civilization to grow and flourish. And the same thing I will say that when the environment changes, when the drought comes, and when the earthquake comes, these also the cause of extinction of such civilization. So what this civilization teaches us? Why I am putting these slides to portray this civilization? What they teaches us? If you see, the most important thing that they have reservoirs to store water. Because nowadays we have seen that in a rainy season, we allow our rivers to flow to sea. We are not checking that river water in the rainy season, which we may use in the summer when we have facing the serious challenges of water. So such type of knowledge that ancient civilization is giving to us. So, what the 21st century is witnessing the serious threat of climate that had ever in the human history. If we see the chronic capitalism and the process of this uneven development process has worsened the situation. If we see what is chronic capitalism, we'll discuss that how in the name of a development, what has done to the third world countries. The development rhetoric that claims that the aim of rapid industrialization is enabled to pay off its debt. We know that India is a huge country and India has taken loan from the World Bank and other organizations for which India has to pay its debt. So how India will pay its debt? How it pays? All of you, we know that India sells its minerals in a very low and marginalized, in a very marginal rate to the world market. But the price of these minerals are more than that. We do not know that when we will realize the real value of these minerals, for say the aluminiums, that has huge demand in the world market. Today, if you see the everything that we have using today, most of the things that we have, the Tetra Pak that we use if you drink fruity, the Tetra Pak is also made from the aluminum foil. The plane engine, the aeroplane body is also made from the aluminum. So there is a huge demand of aluminum because of its light weight in the world market. So what the rich country, what is the hidden agenda of the developed countries behind this exploitation? What the Samarendra sir has very interestingly narrated in this book, Out of the Earth, that most of the third world countries like India who are in debt, they are trying to come out of their debt burden and they are aspired to being a rich country. But behind this facade, there are some hidden agenda driven by the global capitalism that needs to extract, plunder, expand, outsource, and in debt, concentrating wealth in the middle class urban areas and impoverishing the rural India in a more devastating ways. So we have to understand the hidden agenda behind this chronic capitalism. The mining and heavy metal consumption have not assumed the key place that deserve in the climate change. In most of the climate change debate, we have ignored the mining and the heavy metal consumption, how it brought environmental catastrophe. We can take the example of the Niyamgiri movement and the Kasipur movement. The anti-globalization movement has started from the most backward region, where the Dongriya Kandas are protesting for their, they want that they will never leave the mountain. They worship the mountain, they worship the Niyam Raja. They have their own sensibility towards nature. They are very prone to their nature, they love their nature, they worship their nature, they love their worship, and they worship to the perennial source of a stream. So they have their sensibility. But today, they are under threat due to this extractive model of development, due to this extractive capitalism. So what the major problem is that the richer nations are outsourcing their most polluting industries to these third world countries like India, where the environment is lower in the political agenda and legislation to protect it is enforced weakly if at all. If we see the third world countries now paying their environment at the cost of their development. So we do not want such type of development that will destroy our nature. We want a sustainable development. We want an inclusive development that will really benefit the tribal poors. We do not want such type of development that will do devastation with our nature. metal production is one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters and top the list of industries being outsourced to India. So along with the rapid industrialization and mining to fulfill this, the global aluminum demand and other problems like the population explosion, mass consumption of plastic and polyethylene, the major problem that we have seen today, the acidification of the seawater, deforestation have given a boost to the global warming today. And the intergovernmental report on climate change that was formed in 1988, if I'm not wrong, by the United Nations, when the United Nations failed to curb the problems of the climate change, it formed the intergovernmental panel on climate change, which has published a recent report on 9th August 2021. The report provides the new estimates of the chances of crossing the global warming level of 1.5 degrees Celsius in the next decades, and finds that unless there are immediate or rapid large-scale reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions, limiting warming to close to 1.5 degrees Celsius or even 2 degrees Celsius will be beyond reach. We have already crossed the earth temperature from 1 degree Celsius, and we are moving forward to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and in subsequent decades we will toss to 2 degrees Celsius. If you can see that how the global warming and rise of sea level, if the earth temperature increases from 1.5 degrees Celsius to 2 degrees Celsius, then the sea level will rise to 10 centimeter. If you see, if the global warming continues and if the sea level rises, then what would about the coastal areas of the countries will face in future? And this has drawn the major debate of Anthropocene. One of the most pioneering intellectual of the 21st century, Professor Dipesh Chakrabarty, eminent historian, University of Chicago, has really pressed the debate of Anthropocene, whom he say it is a geological epoch in which human activities has powerful effect on global warming. For contextualizing this debate, he has written a book, The Climate of History in a Planetary Age, in which has stated that when the ice age ended, the last ice age ended, and the beginning of the Holocene age, that is 11,700 years before present age, and when the earth becomes warmer, and now we have entered what the scientists say that we have already entered into the age of Anthropocene, but yet it has to be pressed by the geologists, and they have, though they have not accepted it yet, they have not formalized it yet, they have to be formalized it in near future. And because we are now witnessing the major problems of the climate change in the planet. So his book has an eye-opener for all over the world, and he has begun with the debate between the globe and the planet. What globe means, how the globe is a humanocentric construction, and the planet decenters the human being, and the planet is telling about the lives of the multicellular lives, and how with the development of technology, the global capitalism has flourished and has created devastation with our nature. He has also put this in his book, how the technology that we have in the age of technosphere, or we have in the age of technology, that the technology, if we see, is now polluting our environment. Now is it destroying to our environment. His other books, such as The Crisis in Civilization and The Provincializing in Europe, are other profound contribution to the intellectual world. He is a pioneer intellectual because if you see in his books, he has given reference more than 5,000. It reflects that how he has done a serious research on climate. Though he is not a man of history from the beginning, he has pursued his BA degree in physics and later PG on management. Then he entered a PhD in history. But the way he has done a serious contribution to the academics, that is remarkable. And the debate between the planetary and globe can be better understood if I will give an example here. The current pandemic that we are living in. The pandemic, how it is related to globe. He has said that globe and planet is not contradictory to each other. They are related to each other. So what is globe? To him, that if you see the pandemic situation, that has increased because of human being, because human are so mobile for their lives and livelihood to satisfy their needs. They have started living in the dense cities where there is high population pressure and which is very prone to the spreading of this disease. That device comes under the globe. And if you shift from to the planet, but if you see the COVID SARS-2 virus has come from the bat, which is a mammal, and we also know that human being also a mammal. Though the virus is living inside the body of the bat, which is a mammal for 100 or 1,000 years, but how it entered to the human body, because though human is a mammal, it easily the virus is prone to human body, and so that the humans become the victim of this virus. I will come to the subsequent slide, and this is about how the Professor Dipesh Chakrabarty has acknowledged our Professor Chandinanda, how his encouragement, how his inspiration gave him to write the climate of history in a planetary age. And we will see the Professor Nandas has an upcoming book, which is very important for all of us to understand, relocating history of imagination, fabric of time from Salala Mahabharata to Niyamgiri. It's the reflection of his critical thinking, and which is also an eye-opener for which connected the history from the ancient to contemporary epoch in a fabulous or lucid manner. If we see the history of climate of India and Odisha in particular, we cannot ignore the common sense the Adivasi possess to sustain and preserve their own natural habitat. I have already told that how they worship their river, their stream, their trees, their mountains, whom they consider the source of life. The inherent wisdom of this tribal people teaches us how to protect and sustain our planet from its decay. Yes, they are also teaching to the 21st century intelligentsia that if you do not decolonize your greed over the natural resources, things will be more disastrous for our world environment soon. The time has come to rethink and deconstruct our colonial mind to save the lives on our Mother Earth. It is not the responsibility of a single citizen, it is the responsibility of the global citizens to think seriously about it. So being concerned regarding the planetary age, we need to think about the history of today in thinking about the human futures. So debating the natural history in categories globe as a human-centric construction that I have already told. So in the incident of 2003 bushfire in the Canberra territory of Australia, which has taken the numerous lives of human beings and non-human beings, that really bereaved Professor Chakrabarti, and that really inspired Chakrabarti, that really encouraged to think seriously about the environment, for which has come up with this book of planetary history. So at the same way, we cannot ignore in 2021 that the Similpal forest fire in Odisha, which has caused the forced displacement of tribals who have been inhabiting in this forest land, and at the same time it has taken numerous lives of non-human beings, affecting the ecology. When the forest fire takes place, it affects the biodiversity of the nature. It also affects the climate change. It affects the what we call the planetary age. So after discussing the nature of human being, how they are prone to destruction, now I'll come to the state of nature where we have been living. So today we know that the global warming has posed a threat to the very existentialism of humans and non-human living beings. This is a existentialism. It is a question of existentialism, which has to be seriously understood. The animals that we have seen before, like the dinosaurs, like the dodo birds, they have not seen today. So what we have done to our environment, who has given us the authority to take the lives of the other living beings? We need to think it seriously. The increase of the Earth's temperature has led to the extinction of many living species, including the aquatics. If you see the acidification of the sea, what has done to the planktons, how they have destroyed the water animals, the acidification of the sea, which is the byproduct of the climate change, and the unprecedented rise of carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases led to the depletion of the ozone layer. You know the ozone layer is the safeguard for the world as a whole. If it depletes and the ultraviolet rays comes to the earth, it will cause the number of disease, whether it is living beings and aquatics or humans, it will create the numerous diseases that cannot be avoidable. Further, such manifestation of the global warming, if you see how it has taken the life of the microbes, planktons, the process of eutrophication, another major cause of what eutrophication is. What is eutrophication? The increase of plants and algae in water bodies, which led to the reduction of the oxygen level. When the oxygen level is reduced in water bodies, then the water animals or the aquatics unable to breathe, and they led their lives. What the other consequence of this climate change? The crop failure. All of you know that the farming in Odisha is affected due to the attack of Chakra Poko, whom we call the plant hoppers, in a massive scale since 2018. So it is the result of the climate change and nothing else. So since the beginning of the early 19th century, many glaciers throughout the world started rapidly melting. And the research shows that the Earth is now losing 1.2 trillion tons of ice each year. Please think seriously about it, that the Earth is now losing 1.2 trillion of tons of ice each year. The major debate on the Anthropocene among the scientists carries significance today because human activities that satisfy their needs and greeds are the root cause of such consequence. Especially since the Industrial Revolution, the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse emission hiked the Earth temperature in an unprecedented way, which is beyond our imagination. and which manifested the major cause of the glacier melting throughout the world. Not just the Himalayan glaciers are melting here, but also the Arctic glaciers are melting. But scientists realize that even if we able to curb the emissions in the coming decades, more than a third of the world's remaining glacier will melt before the year 2100. If we still take precaution, still we would have no control over the climate change. When it comes to sea ice, 95% of the oldest and thickest ice of the Arctic Ocean has already gone. The things about the condition of the polar bears, those habitats, they are losing, and they are also in the verge of extinction. So, if emission continues to rise unchecked, the Arctic could be ice-free in the summer as soon as the year 2040. If the emission increases, then all the glaciers of the Arctic Ocean will be melted. As the Amazon, another problem is that the Amazon rainforest burned in 2019, covering an area of Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Peru, where the 2.3 millions of animals died in just 7.7% of its total area. Just think seriously about the rainforest fire has taken 2.3 millions of animals. Not just that, the impact on global climate, the fires created environmental concerns, such as the carbon dioxide gas has increased suddenly, carbon monoxide gas with the fire emissions. So potentially it has impacted the biodiversity of the Amazon forest, which also created threat to the indigenous tribes that live within the forest. In the similar way, we can see the June 2019 Australian wildfire that increased the pollution level at Sydney to 11%. It affected more than 2.5 crores of forests, including one Arab animal died. One Arab animal died in Australian wildfire in 2019. Then what is the serious consequence? The earth is getting warmer. We need to give attention. We need to pay attention on it. So a report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has dire warning for India, which is already going through an unprecedented upheaval in weather pattern and environment. We see that IPCC has warned that the major 12 coastal cities will be submerged in the sea. Who are they? They are Kandla, they are Oka, Bhavnagar, Mumbai, Mormugao, Mangalore, Cochin, Paradip, Khidirpur, Visakhapatnam, Chennai, Tuticorin. These cities will be submerged if the glacier continues to melt and seawater continues to rise. The most major cities, Mumbai, Chennai, Cochin, Visakhapatnam, will be completely vanished from the map. And this is not the IPCC report has said. The NASA has already says that Indian coastal cities will be submerged up to 2.7 feet by 2100. So this is a serious matter. And now I will come to discussion, jump to discussion the state of water shortage. If we see, now the petrol price has hiked to rupees 103 or 4. But please think seriously. If after 1 or 2 decades, if you will pay for a 1 liter bottle, if you pay in, we are paying 20 rupees per 1 liter water, and we will pay 200 rupees per 1 liter water bottle. then we will realize the severity of the water shortage. That we all know that how the Indians are wasting waters. When we are brushing teeth, when we are taking bath, we run the tap. Even we left the taps running. This shows that we are not bothering about our environment. We are not serious about our conducts. The large cities of India are facing water shortages. Mumbai, Jaipur, Bhatinda, Lucknow, Nagpur, Chennai are facing the acute water shortages today. In 2018, Niti Aayog has come up with a report that Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai, and Hyderabad are expected to deplete their groundwater by 2020, which would directly affect 100 million people. A report published in WaterAid that also stated that in near future, the demand of water will be on the rise due to the rapid growth of Indian cities. Though India is rapidly moving towards urbanization, the population density will increase. It will also increase the demand of the per person water consumption. As the number of people living in urban areas has increased since 2001, so many Indian cities will face the acute water crisis in future. Another, I want to give the illustration of the Cape Town, one of the oldest and second largest city of South Africa. For the first time, the past biggest water crisis of globe due to climate change, that the Cape Town run out of water. The groundwater level has come to zero. In January 2018, the officials in Cape Town announced that the city of 4 million people was just 3 months away from running out of water, out of municipal water. The world was stunned. Labeled day zero by local officials and brought on by 3 consecutive years of anemic rainfall. 2015 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, the 3 years, the Cape Town faced the continuous drought, which resulted the groundwater level to zero. April 2018 was to be the date of the largest drought-induced municipal water failure in modern history. The day zero, 12th April 2018. If you see the slides, there is a picture of the Cape Town. The Cape Town is surrounding with the water, but that water is not drinkable. The water is not drinkable. That is sea waters. That is salt waters. So, what we learn from the Cape Towns? It is the city, the 21st century world that has run out of water. And just imagine if in the major cities that I have just said will face the same consequence, then what we will do? So what lesson we learned from the Cape Town, how it managed the water crisis? From 1st February 2018, the city increased the restriction limiting the usage to 15 liters per person per day. The Cape Town started, the term is called water rationing. The Cape Town started water rationing, limiting 50 liter per person consumption. And the South African police service also deployed in the area, what we call the distribution point after the day zero. You see that in modern world, when we are collecting water and the police will watch us whether we have exceeded the limit of 50 liters or not. If we have exceeded, then we will face what the police will betray, we will face the betrayal of the police. If this situation will happen in India, then what we will do? The urban residents were requested not to flush the toilet after urinating. How Cape Town imposed water rationing, water sanctions. The urban residents were requested not to flush the toilet after urinating, to flush using rainwater or the grey water, what we call the wastewaters, after defecating. To reduce the length and the frequency of the shower. In order to conserve water, hand sanitizers was provided in offices and public buildings for use instead of conventional hand washing. The intensity, the projection of this slide is to understand the intensity of this problem. In the second half of the 2017, a campaign was launched to help save water through a maintenance and behavioral change campaign at school. A campaign started in the school, how to reduce the water consumption, how to use water very seriously when it is very much required or very much essential. Then what solution we need or we want for our earth, how to overcome this climate crisis. I have come up with some suggestions in terms of climate contract, which is the original creation. Today, we all are living, we know that we are living in a sovereign state who protects our lives and security. And the sovereign state regulates the behavior of our citizen. It ensures the rights, liberty, equality, justice to all our citizens. But what problems we face today? We know that we have United Nations, we have intergovernmental panel on climate change, who in every report gives the world some finite times to take serious steps on the climate change. But what the politicians do, they want an infinite period of time to execute these plans. So it never happens at all. So the climate change becomes worsening day by day, worsened day by day. So what is the requirement of the earth today? The only lack of the state of nature, we do not have a world organization on climate change, having sovereign power to ensure environmental justice to all, not only for the human beings, but also other non-human living beings. The unregulated behavior of some state and the state corporate nexus, please remember the state corporate nexus that have resulted serious climatic threat to the existence of the planet. To ensure and enforce the green rights like right to access clean water, clean air, overall the right to live in a just environment, we say the favorable environment for each and every human and non-human living beings. The WOCC will be vested with all the powers to take appropriate decisions for the sake of the largest interest of the planetary age. And what is the organization of this institution? A body of 6 members of each nation comprising 2 environmental activists, 1 critical researcher or academicians on environment, 1 scientist, 1 judicial luminary, and 1 policy thinker will constitute the body of WOCC, World Organization on Climate Change. The constituting members of the WOCC will be appointed by the government concerned of each nation for a period of 6 years. If you see the total 1170 members of the governing body will sign a contract for the formation of the World Organization on Climate Change. And the Executive Council of the WOCC will work comprising 195 members one members from the 6 members body of each nation on a rotational basis for each years. Any major decision of the World Organization on Climate Change on Environment will need to be signed and ratified by the 2/3 members out of 1170 members governing body present and voting. The governing body will sit at least twice a year, and the Executive Council will meet at least once in a quarter. The President and the Vice President of the governing body will be democratically elected for each year from the governing body. And all the meetings and major decisions will be taken in virtual mode. We do not want to need our time and money. So it's the best way to go for a virtual mode. We can sign also virtual. The 6 members of each nations will work. What they will work, what the WCC will work, and what it will facilitate. The 6 members of each nation will work on the ground level, on the rural level, in order to understand the civilian perspective. It is not that we just sit in AC rooms and we are thinking about the policy perspective of the world. No, we have to visit the rural areas, what they have facing, what the climate catastrophe they are facing. So we need to understand their perspective, what type of climate they want, what problem they are facing, what sustainable and eco-friendly development is from their perspective, not from our perspective. So they will carry forward these opinions from the grassroots level to the top level in order to understand the intensity as well as the policy dimensions and impact on the climate change on Earth system. Yes?
Please try to wind up, Shubham.
Yes. Just 1 or 2 minutes. So another major work of the WCC is to campaign for the mass plantation, and also it will encourage the mass use of renewable energy, green energy for a sustainable future world order. Also to fulfill the future water crisis, the most important thing, the acute water shortage that we know that the world will face in future. The WCC will encourage and work with the scientists to develop a cost-effective desalination method. What is desalination method? It will convert the salt water, the saline water into fresh water. So the WCC will conduct various awareness programs and webinars for water conservation, mining less pollution-free industries, mass use of electronic vehicles, limiting use of plastics, replacement roads by the railways among the nations and global citizens to save the planetary race. So decision of the WCC will be binding and final on environment as well as the protection of biodiversity as a whole. Once the contract has been concluded, no state can withdraw itself from WCC unless their national interest in environment is affected or jeopardized. Thank you, everyone.